Welcome back to COM 3693, Interpersonal Health Communication. Today we're going to talk about social support that we receive from others around us and how that influences our health. We're going to begin by discussing what social support is, different types of social support, and why supportive communication is so important in managing the daily stresses we experience in our lives. Imagine the following scenarios. You're struggling with the stresses of homework piling up, and you know that anxiety is creeping in your mind. You go over to one of your best friend's houses and she provides you with a listening ear. After some back and forth, where she provides you with empathic, consoling messages, you feel much better. Or imagine that you're sick with the stomach flu. You tell your parents that this flu has completely incapacitated you and you haven't been able to leave the house. Your dad rushes over to the house with groceries and all the medications to make you feel better. And you do. Or imagine that you recently found out about an unplanned pregnancy and you're scared to death about the future. The nurse comes into the office and soothingly tells you everything's going to be all right. She gives you all of the necessary information about the next steps you can consider taking and provides you with resources and reading materials. This makes you feel better. And finally, imagine you were recently diagnosed with cancer. And while talking to a longtime worker colleague and friend, he reminds you of the resilience you've shown in the workplace and how you're not a quitter. He boosts your confidence to a measure you didn't think was within your capacity at this very moment. You feel better. What do all of these scenarios have in common? They all involve the reception of social support from others around you. And social support has a tendency to make us feel better. But is it the only thing that social support does for us? So you might be wondering, what is social support and how does it affect our lives? We all likely have a mental model of what social support looks like in our minds. The image of people holding hands, crying together, and intently listening may come to mind. Succinctly, from a communication standpoint, social support is verbal and nonverbal messages produced by a source with the intent of aiding others perceived as needing assistance of some kind. These verbal and nonverbal messages, such as hugs, a message like "you are strong enough to conquer this," or "we'll get through this together," are referred to as supportive communication. What are the different kinds of ways that we can express support for others? Claren Weinert provided a measure of social support that gives us some indication of different types of supportive communication that we exercise when we perceive someone else needs it. In some cases, we provide social support to others by showing that we care, love, and empathize with them, thereby ensuring the other knows that they can trust you. We call this emotional support. Emotional support shows respect for the other, and messages are communicated in a non-judgmental, compassionate, and unrestricted manner. Other ways we can show support for another is through the provision of tangible goods and services or aid, which we call instrumental support. For example, a wife organizing the weekly medication for her husband shows instrumental support by providing necessary aid to him. Another example of instrumental support might be loaning a friend money because you'll know he'll have to take off time work for his illness. Another way people provide social support is through offering information that might not be known to the other, and that lack of such information might be causing uncertainty. Some might choose to offer facts and other relevant statistics, while others may direct the ill to resources that can help them. Still, information might not be in the form of supporting materials like facts and statistics, but lived experiences to help those with an illness better understand the road ahead of them. Finally, some people show support by bolstering the self-esteem or confidence of those who are ill. Offering messages of affirmation like, "You're a strong, capable person," giving compliments, or providing counter-arguments to negative self-talk are all examples of appraisal support. Being someone's personal cheerleader is the hallmark of appraisal support. Who most often provides us with the social support we need on a daily basis? Our family members, close friends, and romantic partners are the members in our social network who most frequently provide us with supportive, meaningful communication. Of course, others in our environment, like doctors, teachers, and religious leaders, might also provide us with social support we need, especially when confronted with an illness. But not all social support from various sources affect you in the same way. Mohammed Al-Subai and his colleagues investigated the role of social support on university students' well-being by looking at the influence of different sources of social support on psychological quality of life and social quality of life. They surveyed 461 students, predominantly female, from a large university in the United Kingdom. In their study, they found nuanced differences in the way supportive communication from specific others augmented their lives. Higher psychological well-being was associated with greater support from family members and friends, but not support from significant others. On the other hand, social well-being was related to social support from friends and social support from significant others, but not social support from family members. The researchers concluded that different people provide different value to one's life when offering supportive communication. What types of outcomes is general social support associated with? This was one of the questions Shui-Hung Wang and associates asked in their article, Associations Between Social Support and Health Outcomes, a meta-analysis. The research team looked at the consortium of evidence on the correlates of social support and found 182 primary studies that met their inclusion criteria for the analysis. They found that social support was significantly associated with a number of health-related circumstances. From a clinical standpoint, increased social support was related to better health status, fewer physical symptoms to the illness, and fewer psychological responses to the illness. From an adaptive standpoint, perceived higher social support was related to better life adjustment, psychosocial adjustment to the illness, adaptive coping mechanisms, and lower stress. Finally, from a well-being perspective, more social support was tied to stronger health beliefs about overcoming the illness, engagement in health promotion behaviors, a better perceived quality of life, and more self-actualization or the realization of one's full potential. As you can see, a whole host of positive benefits can come from the reception of social support. And as you can imagine, negative health outcomes are ushered in for those who lack or don't have access to social support. So why is it that people who have access to social support enjoy such positive health outcomes, whereas those with little to no social support experience negative health outcomes? One explanation, which has received substantial support in the literature, starts with the assumption that we encounter numerous stressors in our daily lives. When these stressors remain unchecked, they can have some pretty harmful consequences on our physical and psychosocial well-being. However, social support received, perceived, or enacted by others can block or buffer the stressors from getting to us. Thus, we call this the buffering hypothesis. Another yet similar alternative model, called the direct effects hypothesis, argues something very similar. It states that social support is categorically going to have positive effects on our well-being, but, and here's the difference, regardless of whether any stress is experienced. The direct effects hypothesis has also received considerable support in the literature. So far, you'll probably agree that I've painted this image in your mind that social support is always a good thing for one's well-being. But is that always the case? Alexander Pallant and Wolfgang Himmel interviewed people suffering from inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD. IBD, which is an umbrella term used for Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, is a chronic inflammation of the gastrointestinal tract. In this study, those suffering from IBD were asked about times they can remember where they experienced negative feelings towards someone else who was trying to provide them with social support. Several major themes emerged from the analysis of the interviews. The first was that some patients wished they didn't have to think about the disease all the time. When they wanted to escape the web of their chronic illness, social support from others pulled them right back in. The researchers referred to this as confrontation with unwanted information by social contacts. One spouse recalled, "My husband also deeply cares about all of this. Although I have to say that it sometimes gets to be too much, and I tell him I don't want to listen to all this crap. Leave me in peace." Another theme researchers noted was that sometimes it was interactions with people who were undergoing the same condition in a support group that reported feeling much better than them. For instance, one female said, "For myself, at some point, I'll not participate in the group anymore because I don't want to listen to what someone attained for themselves. I have even more wounds. I have even more operations, and I still have better prescriptions." Some interactions felt like all the supporter was doing was pitying them. For instance, one person said, "It's not as hard for me anymore. It's harder when people pity you. Me, I don't need pity." A male mentioned that a lot of the social support he received from family members translated into overreactions, which caused him unnecessary fear. He said, "People who visited me started crying because they thought, 'What's the matter with him?' And then this caught hold of me too, so I started to be really afraid and panicky." Finally, some with IBS interpreted other social support as something called positive stigma, or the idea that falling outside of the norm or being different was a positive thing. For example, one female said, "Well, I realized that some people who before at some party or other didn't really think I was interesting at all. Then thought, fascinating, long-time illness. Not what I wanted at all. That's pretty much all I have for this module on social support and health. In this module, you learned about what social support is and the different ways in which people exercise supportive communication. You should also have a better idea of who provides social support and the outcomes where they really make a difference. Finally, you should know about the positive and negative outcomes of social support and why many individuals bask in the glory of social support. As usual, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments of this video or feel free to email me. Thank you for watching until the end, and I'll see you again next week.